Hello, welcome to Warblog. Today I'm just going to play this game. Whatever it is. Manoukh. Essentially the objectives are here and here. And we've got units here and here and here and here and here. Nothing really standing too much in the way. I'm not sure there is any huge strategy that needs to be considered, but on the theme of planning, I would like to plan it. And as such, the thing that I forgot to mention yesterday in my planning thingamabob was to plan not just one step ahead, well, not just to plan what you're going to do, but plan what the opponent's going to do and then what you're going to do. And so I'm going to attempt to sort of do a little bit of that advanced planning that I didn't do in the previous walkthrough, the previous sort of video. And for example, if my plan was to essentially drive this unit to a position here, from which then to strike from the rear, I might say, okay, well, I'm going to hold with all of these units like that, which would say, well, there's a gap there, so what am I going to do about that? But anyway, I've made my plan, or I've suggested my plan. Now, obviously I've thought of this, but if I do hold with these, and that is actually the next step, I could say, well, I could probably move some units in here, and I could possibly, with the amount of movement and the successful combats, force both of these to retreat and possibly get to there. I could possibly advance into there. Now, if I possibly advance into there, these units will probably be, let's just say for sake of argument, they are there and there. I mean, they might have gone there, they might have retreated there, they might even have retreated there and there. If I was there, they wouldn't be able to retreat there and there. But what I'm saying is, I'll end up with this red unit there and these two black units there, and everything else will be the same. But the ISIS move then, he'll then be able to do what? What would he be able to do? And that's the thing that I was sort of suggesting with the second level planning. And he's obviously got a lot of units there, but they're in an objective. But he's got these as a reserve. Now these could, in theory, with this, shoot down here. These could sort of hold their ground, but he could then come down here. Now they can only possibly move 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, but they could get to there. And he, 1, 2, 3, 4, could get to there. So they could sort of swing around there. Now that doesn't really achieve much, because they're not going to stand any chance of getting through any of these units here. But the point is, forward planning. Now, forward planning, you know, as I said, sort of in the previous video that I did about strategy and planning being an integral part of strategy, is that you know, the majority of what you do is planning, and you know, the actual doing things is implementation of that plan and strategy. But it should encompass not just what you're going to do, but then what the other person is going to do. So you could then sort of say, okay, well, what am I going to do as the ISIS player if none of these units have moved? Well, the thing is, I might sort of say, well, this is tough, I'm going to fall back. I think one thing that ISIS could bear in mind that is of use is if they hold, they can entrench. Now, in theory, they should have maybe entrenched before. And it shouldn't really be this sort of embarrassingly straight line. It is more of an undulating line when you look at it sort of, you know, on a map. But they've got this as a sort of something to use, and if we sort of reload this page, they've got some artillery somewhere, but it doesn't have a particularly long range. Now, one thing that is sort of quite apparent with the Syrian Arab army is that they've got some artillery here. They've only got one lot, and I don't think they have artillery anywhere else. And I sort of did that deliberately, but the ISIS player has got 2 lots of rockets there, and 1 lot of rockets in there. They don't have anything else, I don't think. Now, but their rockets only have a range of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we were to sort of look at their range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. Their range is sort of something like that for that. 1, 2, 3, 4, and something like that for that. So they basically can cover all of this area. Now there's not much in there. There's basically 1, 2, 3, 4. There's this and this. So we might say, well, basically, as part of our sort of second level planning, we're saying, well, okay, well, the indirect fire can be provided to basically attack these units here and these units here. So my plan might be to sort of hold with this, maybe hold with this, but move it to a more central position. For example, there, which still leaves the flank open, but I don't want to really split that up. But basically, it's sort of all about thinking just about the move ahead. And if I put myself, well, basically, if I modify this line along these ways, but then move these units deliberately and purposely out of artillery range, 1, 2, 3, 4, so maybe there, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you've got to bear in mind that sometimes there's a bit of an error, so that might not necessarily be the safest place. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now there's no real way to get this out of there other than moving it, say, there, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, or there, and there's possibility of splitting them up. But so what I could do is to move these units back, and then make a very strong effort to do that. And now this is just, I'm not saying this is a good strategy. I'm saying this is a strategy that I thought of in about, in about 5 seconds, and I'm just playing with it. My strategy could be the other way around. It could be to break through with these much larger units and to push this flank around to deal with this responsive unit here. It could be to sort of use both of these units at the same time to do that same action. It could be to move ahead with everything right at the same time. My point here is really to sort of think about, well, what happens next? Now, we've got, the one thing to sort of bear in mind is, we do have artillery here. Now, the Syrian artillery has a range of 8. So if you look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I mean, that goes all the way up to there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So basically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can basically cover everything in that hex, in that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know why I got that wrong. Because that doesn't line up, does it? How could that be? Oh, that's because I haven't done it from that hex. That's right. Okay. So, forgive my sort of stupid lines, but basically, I think, I could work on a strategy that actually uses this artillery, although there's not a lot of it, to sort of better effect. And it's the same sort of stratagem that I've discussed a lot of times, and I think it's quite apparent, but a lot of people don't really like to sort of, not so much admit it, or address it, but to truly take it on board. And I'm sort of thinking about other games here where they have time limits on things, and it's basically use of artillery, use of air power. You just keep firing your artillery and your air power. It's like cheating until the enemy basically give up, and you don't actually have to move your ground units because you use your artillery, which is defended on this hill, Tafha. There's Tafha Mountain, Tafha Hill. You just keep blowing everything up with that, and sooner or later, they're not going to be able to withstand that. But they do have their rockets. But as I said, our strategy would sort of almost involve moving away. Now, the thing is, we could sort of do that because there's nothing these people can do to really hurt these units. Now, we can't really sort of split them up because there's 3 in there. There's 3 in there. We don't want to split that up. There's 3 in there. But what we could do with these, because we want to keep more than 6, so we could split up. So my plan could involve to move one of these units and 2 of these units. No, 1 of these units and 1 of these units. So the 4 and the 2 to make a 6. And put those at a more central position, say there, and then the other units can move there, and that would give zones of control. So I'm going to just, well, that's what my plan is. I don't want to sort of draw everything out. So my plan will be to rebolster that, move these back, move this down here. Now that opens up a lot of zones of control, but what I'm going to do is actually move them back here, 1, 2, 3, 4, so they're out of range. And that will give me, now this doesn't take into account the fact that I probably need to control all of this frontage. But if I move these back to there, like that, I will then basically have a front line that goes something like that, with a rogue flanking unit here. And of course get some air power. Now the thing to bear in mind with the air power is that they've got quite a lot of air defence. So in here they've got 1 air defence unit, and in there they've got none. There must be another game I'm thinking about whether they've got quite a lot of air defence. They've got some air defence in there. So the air power is going to need to take that into account. The radius for that is going to be, something like that. It's going to be 6 hexes. So I'm going to actually start that manoeuvre. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So that gives me that. And that keeps that front line there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Move these back to here, and then move these to there. Now it gives that front line. So that's the first part of my plan. The next part of my plan is to move in there. Now I've got 2 irregular units there, and do I want to use my air power on them before or after? I think what I'm going to do is use it on this, because there's just so many more units in there that can be hit, to start clearing that hill out. Bit of damage on the first unit. I'm also going to use my artillery on there as well. And look at that. So it's 3.7 for him, 0.4, 0. So basically, my strategy and my plan of attack is to keep everything held back here. This is quite a substantial force. To use my air and artillery to basically get these people to retreat on their own will, and to use these units over here to create sort of chaos on this flank, of which this should be 7 to 1, 4 to 1. How did that happen? I think they might be flagged up as ones. Anyway, I've got a few seconds left. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do another 15-minute of this, but obviously I have to upload this one first, so I'll call it at that, and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, I resolved the problem. Essentially, I'd entered the digits in sort of off a bit, so that two of them were like 0, 2, 2. Basically, they were off a bit. So I've replicated everything. So I've moved everything again. But when I did the attacks, I didn't get as much damage. Instead, I think one of them, this one was on 3.9. So damage now is the depressions is 1 on that, 0.6 on that, nothing on that, nothing on that, and 0.6 on that. So that's a bit of a loss, but I'm about to do this attack again now with the proper units. So, because when you enter the numbers, you enter it like 226. It's got an attack box, defend box, movement box. It's got some other boxes, and instead of putting this in the attack, put it in the defense. So the 2 defense, you had no attack, 2 defense, and then it had you know whatever 2 movement and a 6 dug-in factor or something like that. Anyway, so instead of 4 to 1, this should now be 8 to 1, coming up to 7 to 1, which is a DE. So we've done that first attack, and here we got 2.5. Now what I'm going to do here first, just because I think I'll be able to move and then attack. If I attack and then I won't be able to move because I'll lose a movement or 2 movements. So I'm going to go here because I want to get as far up here as I can. Another DE. Okay, do I actually have any movement? No. So it's just as well I'd move that first. Which puts me there. So basically, with regards to strategy and planning, I have now achieved my plan, and that is now to have my front line sort of reduced like that, which is, you know, it's got enough space between the hexes to stop them just driving straight through. It does leave all this open, but we can assume that it doesn't really matter because there's no objectives, although that could have been more important. It could have been a consideration. But we've now got this sort of flanking unit basically threatening the flank along there. Now, what we did consider was what could ISIS do? And this is sort of where I'm not very good at strategy, because I can't really think more than one or two places ahead. And I think, you know, the really good people at chess, they think like, you know, 10 moves ahead, and it's all about being able to visualize all the permutations, and it gets quite complex, you know, 3 or 4 moves ahead, and I can't really do that. But we're now sort of saying, what would ISIS do? Well, let's just get through to the ISIS turn, because basically it is their turn. And so on their turn, now similarly, they want to do some planning before they do then commit to any strategy. So they sort of say, well, okay, well, they've done their first move, and obviously they've put themselves into a position that makes it a little difficult to do anything. We've got this along here, and so the natural sort of thing to do would be to sort of refuse the flank. Now, it's interesting really, because that DR resulted in a... When he did that, he retreated there, but when he did the DR on the other one, it eliminated him. He was eliminated properly. This one was only routed back. Now, I think the most obvious strategy would be to refuse the flank along here and to maintain this flank along here, which gives us the benefit of what do we do with this unit here. You know, that's the only sort of, when I say benefit, that's the only sort of additional resource that's not committed to anything in particular. We might be able to say this is free, available. We could also say that we could move whatever we got in these 2 stacks elsewhere, but we really want to sort of possibly maintain those where they are. So if we consider what we've got in here, is it a fighting force? There's 8 units in there. What we've got in there, 6. We could try and attack that lot. We've got 8, 7, 6. Now the thing is, we could maybe try to take this hill out. there's a lot in there and a lot in there. So now the thing with these irregular units, the whole point of the irregular units, one of the main considerations when I sort of put them into play, was to make a sort of unit that is able to just get in the way and then retreat. Well, what's happening before, if I had an infantry company and I put it there, it would have got eliminated just like this. But this one got an elimination result, but he retreated. Now his depression 2. Now if he stays there, his depression will recover. So if I move him to there, if I actually move him to there, I can then maintain that flank. Now that he will still advance, but he can only advance at such a rate. I'm not going to be able to stop him. Now I could make it a little easier for him and move into there, because then he will attack and he won't have to have moved and then to attack, etc. But basically this will be a falling line as it falls back to this hill. Now along that similar line we can sort of say, well, that is how they work. Now we don't really want to sort of push these forward at the moment, but we could just sort of like move them into, surround these units and start, some sort of, attrition. But what have we got in here? Now we've got rockets and air defense, but we've also got some motorized units. Now what I'm thinking is that what we could do would be to attack this hex here. So we've got a plan to refuse the flank along here, basically stopping that. Now we could put some more units over there because we don't need to, this unit doesn't need to be there, and this unit is sort of free. Now in there we've got 2 rockets, infantry, irregulars, infantry. We could almost pull these irregulars out and force them along this way. So basically continually sort of slowing their progress, thwarting their capabilities down, and at the same time preparing for an assault on. And now it's not going to be that great, and to be quite honest, there's nothing that ISIS can do to stop the Syrian Arab army from just moving forward with all these units and just taking all of these units out. They're not going to survive against these units. They're far too powerful. The only reason that I'm not doing that is because I've decided on a particular strategy and I want to maintain that. I could just push forward with all of these units, but the whole point of this video, to some extent, and the videos I'm going to be doing for a while, is all about planning and strategy, which I think are key to what this type of hex counter game is all about, and I think that a lot of games just sort of miss. I say that with some respect. I mean, the board games of the past, were all about that. Now, they weren't necessarily about writing the strategy down, but I have wondered, whether or not that has been done in the past. And I know there are some games, I've seen them on YouTube, where you actually sort of, you work as a commander and you give your companies and your regiments orders. Hold this, attack this, move, but hold when fired. Things like that. Now, I'm not trying to get it to that level. I'm trying to get the thinking to that level, but not necessarily the command. Some others, sort of, you have to roll. In other conventional games, you have to roll to see whether you get command. That brings in added flexibility or that sort of aspect. Those are not sort of things that I'm after. Whether orders follow units, whether units follow orders, whether you have enough sort of supply to carry out an attack, whether you're in command radius, whether you can maintain that command radius. All that sort of stuff. I think those are all sort of things that are spanners thrown into works to make it a little harder, whereas really the challenge is, did you think it through? Did you make a plan and did it work, and were you able to perceive? And it makes a mental exercise out of the whole thing, which I think is, it might sound a bit odd, but obviously I'm doing a video to sort of communicate this idea and sort of labouring it a little. But I think that's pretty much key to it. It's not just about moving tons and tons of units, it's about the mental process that goes into thinking about that process and how far ahead you can think in a sort of an abstract fashion. So essentially we're going to, as ISIS, try to refuse the flank here through those hexes with some support from here, but we're also going to try and attack that by moving these into a position. So 1, 2, I think they can move about 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So if I move there, they'll be fairly well defended. Now, so we're going to move them sort of there. I could move them into there, but I don't want them to be. I don't want them to be completely sort of open to an attack here. Plus, I'm going to move the motorised unit from here. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to move him to about 1, 2, 3. I'm going to move him to about there, and then next turn, what ISIS will then attempt to do, or hope to be in a position to do, will be then to move there, 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 and get a massive surround. Maybe it will only be a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 around this, and take out that artillery. Without that artillery, the game is slightly different. So that's their sort of strategy. Now, they're basically, the strategy in their plan is working along the lines of the idea that the Syrian Arab army are not going to advance. They want to hold that line. Now, one of the reasons I don't think that's a bad thing that the Syrian Arab army are doing, considering they've got the manpower to just go in there and do this sort of stuff. I'm sort of thinking, well, the thing is, there's two reasons why I think it's working in the way that it is. Firstly, it was the strategy that I put in place under the concept of developing a plan right at the very beginning of the video. But secondly, and there's 3 points here. Secondly, in reality, the army commanders, they don't want to commit themselves to a battle if they don't have to. If they can just fire artillery at each one of these, one after the other, and have them run away, they'd much rather do that than engage all these units into what an irregular force would love, close combat. And thirdly, I think my third point now actually, but yeah, the third point was it's just such a natural sort of gut instinct to actually just move all these units forward and start engaging in this sort of complex battle, and it's that sort of paradigm that I quite often try to sort of resist. I've only got a few minutes left, but I might do another video. But anyway, so I'm going to start applying that strategy or that plan. So he should be. Balls that up. I balls that up. I moved into there, and now I'm at 0 movement. Okay, well, what I'm going to do. This is the thing about plans. What happens if you mess them up? I'm going to move him to there, there, and there. He will be in a position, or we lose one combat, it's a pain, we lose the motorised, 1, 2, 3, 4. That was a pain. That was a pain. He can move back into there to create numbers. That was a real pain, because they needed those mechanised units to give them that sort of whatever bonus they would have got. So now we're in a position to essentially attack that hill. We're threatening that hill, and we haven't done anything. We've moved into position, and I think that's another thing about strategy games that I really like, is that you can manoeuvre units, and in a game like this there's lots of space for manoeuvring, and the actual process of what you're doing gives the game the sort of depth that makes it gives it sort of substantial interest. So much into so little, and that's what I quite like about it. When in reality, there's not much to this game, and there's not a lot of units, and it is just making more out of nothing. But that's the whole point. I mean, you're playing it and just sort of thinking, oh god, this is rubbish, I'll play something else, or this is rubbish, I'll play something else, and just sort of, I would do lots of videos on this one game. But I don't want to sort of keep filling up my inbox with playing the same thing with different ideas again and again and again. So we've done the ISIS move. Everything else is pretty much remaining stationary. We're sort of going to move this guy around the obstacles, so he's in a position to help refuse the flank. We've only got a few seconds left, so I'm going to do another video, and I'll see you in a bit. This is the third video, probably wouldn't notice, but it's going to be the last one, so I've got 15 minutes left on this. So we've devised a quick sort of ISIS plan. I think that's going to mean moving those units there as well, and taking this irregular unit around here. Really refusing that flank, stopping them from doing whatever they want. Obviously, we're going to leave that there as part of. We're not adjusting this front line. We're preparing for an assault. I think that the Syrian Arab Army are going to possibly anticipate that. But the ISIS, just like we did here, maybe, well, it wasn't part of the game, but having to do it again and losing some of the effect of that, we've made a mistake. But our plans should encounter 4 mistakes. What happens if I can't do this? What happens if I haven't anticipated that? I mean, obviously this was stupidity on the part of the driver or the commander of that little company. Perhaps their vehicles are not particularly well maintained and they broke down. No one was expecting that. So, we do have some rockets, but they're all out of range. There was nothing in range, because that was what the Syrian Arab Army anticipated, or were manoeuvred for that. So, now I don't think it's really worth manoeuvring the rockets out here, because if they move into these areas, they'll be instantly stopped. They can't move anywhere from here to get into range. So it's now the Syrian Arab Army turn. Now, it's worth bearing in mind, although the turn sequence is never quite right on the first thing, obviously with oops, what happened there? I think we've just gone through and done the no. I don't know what's happened there. Let me reload. Yeah, it's the Syrian Arab Army turn. So their plan, how has their plan gone? Well, they've been thwarted, because what they didn't anticipate was the extent of this I've used the word a couple of times, this rebuff, this refusing flank. You know, they weren't expecting that. There's nothing in there to really truly make much odds on that. Now, what I did think was, what I should have done was, because these are stacks of 3, and I really only need them to be more than 6, I should have moved, well, I've got armour in there, and I've got armour in there. I should have moved these armoured units around to support that. And that will still leave sizable chunks here for that wall. However, we've now got the problem of these units building up for something greater. And so we've got to think, well, what's the risk? And have we spotted it? And if we keep with the plan, now the thing is, I don't want to say plans should be fixed or rigid. That's certainly not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying the plan helps you sort of think and then rationalise what you're doing. And I mean, it's what you're doing anyway, thinking. And you know, I'm not saying, you know, there's nothing. I can't produce any of my plans. I'm not saying documenting them and reviewing them, you know. But I'm sort of thinking, should I just maintain that, because that is my plan? Now, if this was one of those games where you actually put your commands in advance, and then you'd have to get your commander to change that. I know in the Napoleonic period, American Civil War, quite often you actually have to change your orders with a messenger, and you might not be able to do that for a few turns. So, but here everything's radio. You know, it's just a game, so we can change what we do. But I'm sort of thinking, well, what is the risk? I mean, really, do they possess a significant risk? But the thing is, what we will have to react if they come out and take all these hexes and attack that. Even if they're just in that position and lose, we will have to attack. We can't hold this. This can't stay there as our plan, you know, much longer. So how can we, you know, what can we possibly do? Now, what I think is going to be the most appropriate thing to do. What I'd like to do is remove one of these tank units. In this direction. So I'm not going to sort of write this plan out, I'm just going to do it. Now it's a bit of a risk, but it's not much of a risk. Because he can attack me now, but it'll only be a 1-to-1. But I'm moving this unit to support these. Now I'm going to try. Now the fact that well, this unit should have recovered, so we'll be up to depression 1. The fact that we've got this isn't really a big problem, because this is what we want them to do. We're basically forcing the fight along this front. So we're diversing the units across this way, and you know, we can now start attacking them, which is what we want to do. But the thing is, what I should have done in my plan in the very initial stages was to commit these armoured units in with this, because they're just motorised, they're not particularly strong. This would have made them really strong. If I can get them over there, I can still make that happen. I'm not going to play this for much longer, so it's sort of irrelevant. However, what I am also going to do, and we've got this stack here, and we've also got some things in there, sort of rockets. Yeah, we're in the. See, we've moved away from our plan, and now we're in the range of rockets. I think I'm going to use my artillery again on here. No effect. Nothing really. Okay. DE. So that just retreated him to depression 2. It's the same situation, so I do want to move. We've got to stay together, because if these lot swarm around me, they get big odds. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this unit again, just to really bump those depression factors up. Well, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do 2, that'll be a 4-to-1 attack. Oh no, I'm going to do it like this. That's a DE, well that was good. So that's forced him to retreat, so he's now at depression 4, but I'm going to attack this unit with what I've got left. So this should be just over a 4-to-1, possibly a 5-to-1. 4-to-1, I've got the DE, which is good. So I've completely blown that line apart. So these units should all now have some depressions. But unfortunately, I'm now in the range of these rockets. I have been attacking them. Now over here, the question is, do I want to anticipate this? And I think really the answer is I have to. But whatever I do, they're going to get attacked by that unit. Now keeping that unit behind there was a good move, because I can't really attack this turn. But what I can do, I can block that advance. Now, a lot more is in range of his rockets now. And that was stupid. Okay. I think I'm going to start engaging everything. Now, the reason I've done that, so it's 6 to 1, so he's going to have moved back to there. The reason I've done that is because he's pretty much done that move. He's forced me, he's going to attack next turn, so he's forced me to sort of actually start advancing, which I quite clearly have the capacity to do. I'm going to go for this one again, because I'm going to sort of get a double whammy on it. So that's another DE. So he's now moved back to there with depression 4. And I'm going to go for this one that's not in the tank traps. That's a DE. And do we have any movement? Yes, we have enough movement to attack into there, which I think might as well be halved because of the tank traps, but I still think it's going to be good. DR. That wasn't bad, but so it's forced him out of there with a 1 depression, 2 depression. So we're really pounding that line. We didn't actually take that. We take that twice. So it's a DR, 7 to 1, 12. But that allows us now to move forward. Now, maybe not the best of things to be doing, but I think we're going to at least try. I mean, this might just be a 1 to 1. Ooh, 1 to 2, an exchange. Okay. We've really got to start sort of achieving now. DE. No more movement. Okay. Okay, well that's that. And I think that's quite an exciting turn. We've still got this sort of front line. It's quite loose. I would love to play it another turn, but I just don't want to start drinking all this time. Got 2 minutes left. See what ISIS can do. Okay, well there's this unit down here that's stray. He's sort of in trouble because now the ISIS player can do what the ISIS player does best when it finds units on their own. Do we need the rockets? 1, 2, 3, 4 to 1. The rockets could be used somewhere else. This could be a 5 to 1 with the surround. It could be a 6 to 1. 5 to 1, a DR with a really crappy die roll. So that the Syrian player learns, even though it already knew, not to reduce these stack levels to the sort of level that the irregulars can really sort of like start pounding. You know, tank companies on their own, that's probably not true, are a little more vulnerable when you've got these irregular units on your tail. Here, I think we really want to sort of continue doing what we're doing and basically being a pain. It's one of the points of the irregulars, they can sit there and stop you sort of moving forward. I mean, if I move there, that's the end of the turn because I'm in a zone of control. So that really limits what they can do. We're in trouble here. Now, Okay, I'm going to do one more video. I've got to keep it under 15 minutes though, so I'm going to watch the clock. 3 reasons. Firstly, I think everyone wants to know what happens here. Secondly, we're talking about planning and strategy. One element that I think is key to all of that is experience. And from experience, I sort of knew this sort of thing would happen, and that's one of the reasons I kept them back. But again, it's experience that sort of thinks, well, you know that they're going to, they have the ability to. You can't get too close to them when there's a lot of irregulars around. And the other point I wanted to make, the third point, was the benefit of simulation. Because this is a simulation, because I said, well, if we did this again, what would we do differently? And you know, the benefits of what I did there, keeping them back, that could have, you know, it was very good, you know, as a strategic planned move. And I messed it up by justifying to myself that ISIS were about to sort of make a massive attack, whereas the reality of it, they could have been bluffing, and I was not in a position to counter that bluff, because if I had not done it, it would be like I was pretending I hadn't seen it, whereas what had actually happened, I should have not done it. What I should have done, I should have held my ground and just reinforced that, because they couldn't have got us around. Yes, they could have attacked it, yes, they could have done some damage, they probably wouldn't have, and I could have put at least one more unit, or maybe 2 in there to make it pretty much, you know, defendable against whatever sort of attack, because all they would got was some sort of surround. I could have blocked that, you know, at least as long as I had one unit in one of these hexes, I could have given them a retreat. So I should have held. And the other thing, you know, going back to what did I do wrong, well, I think when I committed this along this flank, I think it was fine, but what I didn't truly anticipate was its strength. It's just, well, it's got 2 mechanised units in there, but if I'd put this armoured and this mechanised right at the beginning into that, I could have had 2 stacks operating along this way, and that would have been a lot better. I didn't really look at the strength of that stack. It's a bit weak at the moment. But anyway, we've got this unit here, so he's going to come down and I think move into here. But we're going to do this attack. Now, first things first, I don't think there's any artillery in range. 1, 2, 3, 4, no. So we're just going to do it. Now, I don't want to commit anyone else to it. We can sort of think, well, now this is the sort of thing that one of the reasons, well, whilst I was waiting for it to load, I was thinking, well, what are the connotations, etc., etc. One of the reasons that you know, the Syrian Arab army might not have done what I've just done there, might have held back, it might have looked stupid and just fired artillery, because the sort of situation we've got here now, at the very worst, it's at the very best, it's a headline: ISIS surround, you know, motorised and mechanised units, and you know, this is a sort of scenario where they could capture one of the crews on here and take them away. You know, 5 tank members captured by ISIS, taken away and beheaded on YouTube. You know, and that's the sort of thing, and that's one of the reasons why they might be holding back, because they're quite capable. I mean, I know this is only a game, but in this game they're quite capable of doing something like this. But in reality, disaster is quite plausible. You know, I mean, both sides have got guns. There's no room for complacency anywhere in war. And I wasn't complacent, but you know, obviously that sort of advance has put this into this position, and we're now going to see what the punishment is. I'm not going to do the sums because we'll know. And fortunately, they had a 2-to-1. Now that could have been an exchange. In fact, if they got a 6 on that, I don't know what the odds are, but if that had been 1 better, they might have been eliminated because they would have to get a DE. So fortunately, that has basically saved the day for the Syrian Arab army. I mean, there's not enough there to be a real problem, but you know, they're going to have to sort of start responding. I don't think we're going to do an attack here. We've done the attack down here. Yeah, we've done that one. We've moved all of this. We've got 2 lots of rockets. So we'll fire the rockets into that. Look at that. 2, 1.6. That is a lot. Wow. 3.2, 3.3, 1.2, 1.8. I mean, the ISIS units is almost doing what my initial plan for the Syrian Arab army was to do, just completely pepper them up. But I'm not sure why. Oh no, there's 2 artillery units in there. We've got some rockets in here, which I think we can fire here. Yep, we've done some damage on that armoured unit. So this is a complete disaster for Syrian Arab Army. You know, there's chaos. What are we going to do over here? Is no depression, so I think we're going to fall back with that line a little like this. And that keeps that line nice and straight along there. I don't want to attack into that, it's just not enough. But that gives me this mechanised unit potential to come in and join this fight, and if they've been in that fight, who knows what the odds might be. You know, so, but anyway, just to reiterate, experience, benefits of simulation, and oh yeah, you can just see that, and you know, how I could have planned that using the same plan, but fine tuning it, not advancing, allowing him to take that opportunity to attack that hill, knowing that it would have been pretty bad odds, and certainly wouldn't put me in a position like that. Now, just to sort of demonstrate sort of not so much the flexibility of it all, but well, what I'm going to say is this isn't a problem, and I'm sort of going to demonstrate that now. I'm pausing to think. Right, I'm going to use his depression 1, I'm going to use my artillery, and the thing is with my artillery, I've only got 1 unit of artillery. Now that was a pretty good roll, 3. That was pretty good. What I want to do is open up a space here. Now I was hoping a DE. I was hoping I'd get a DE. The reason being that was a motorised unit and it's gone from the game. Now that opens up a space, obviously, but I can also continue my attacks onto this. Now let me just think, how much have I got? 8, 11. I could get 3 to 1 on that. Let's see if I can get a good bit of damage here, which that was 2. I can attack that and hopefully eliminate it. DE, perfect. And I've still got attacks, they're just not really moving enough. So I've eliminated motorised unit there, mechanised unit there. All of a sudden it's looking like it's all over for ISIS. And I'm going to use what I've got left in here, hopefully to get at least a DR or hopefully a DE to remove that unit. The worst dice roll, DR, well, not too bad. Pushing him into there. Now we've got the main force here. Now I'd like to move along that road. This is where these tank traps, barbed wire features come into play. I can't move in there and attack. So, you know, that's the real, so much the key strength. I can't move in there because it's a zone of control. So I could move into here and provide support here. Now the thing is, he could move into their next turn and their next turn. So I really want to sort of still break this lot up. I don't have any more artillery or air power. Okay, I'm going to move into here. A DE, which has forced him into there. I can do another attack. I'm going to go for a combined attack with everything against these units here. Hopefully I'll get a DE. No, a DR. But I've now got these two units together, which means he won't get a surround on me, and I can use my final assault on this little set of units here. The reason being that if I can get a DR on them, which I should be able to do, that'll push them to beyond any sort of real effectiveness. Depression 3, Depression 5, any more, and he'll be having to do morale checks. And the last one here, I think, is going to be worth doing. It'll probably be 2 to 1. And in exchange, it was a 1 to 1. But basically, I completely obliterated that surround. I've got the ability to prevent that from happening again. Everything else is chaotic. I really need to sort of somehow push the flank here over now. So we've got a flank there, we've got these rogue units there, but we should be able to defend from that. We've got these units here, which I think we've got the option of trying to protect this armoured unit. Which of these units is hurt? Depression 2, Depression 1, 4 and 0. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move in here and attack that. 5 to 1 and a DE, and he retreated to there. I'll go for this one. A DE with a good die roll of 10, of 2. So it's pushed him back to there, and this one's got a depression of 2. So the tank can sort of take care of itself. Oh, that was good. Roll of 1, then with DE. So we're really pushing their depression factors up. Their depression factors have gone up, and these units are fairly fresh. I'm going to hold them because I want to recover this turn, so I'm not going to fire with those. This tank is really showing what tanks are made of. You can try again next turn, but they'll be under so much depression that definitely won't have the same sort of factors. We've got this one unit here. I'm not going to move him. I'm going to call it the end there. We've got this one little rogue unit there. There's still a lot of play in this game, but I'm not going to be doing any more. But essentially, I think it's a fantastic playthrough for the concept of planning, strategy, experience, which is the third thing to add in there. The concept of experience is when you can understand what you see by only seeing a part of it, knowing that these sorts of things can happen. That could have been disaster when I was surrounded there. Could have been absolutely complete disaster. Fortunately, it wasn't. Only a game, but still, it wasn't what it could have been. There's still plenty of play in the game. So that's that really. I'm going to sort of leave it at that so I can stitch the 4 videos up so they're less than an hour. But fantastic little playthrough. If you think you can plan a better strategy with your phenomenal military experience and prowess, then sign up and see what you can do. Okay, I'll speak to you later. Cheers, bye.